The alien empire of Zarkon Prime stretched across countless star systems, ruled by a single voice that no one dared to challenge. The alien queen sat upon her living throne, a symbol of absolute power, her presence enough to silence entire war councils. For generations, she had taught her people one unbreakable truth: humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and unworthy of trust. To the queen, humanity was a rising threat that must always be controlled or destroyed. Under her rule, the empire had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and erased civilizations without hesitation. Fear was order, and order was survival. No one questioned this belief, no one except her daughter. The princess lived within the same towering citadel, surrounded by guards, scholars, and warriors who obeyed her every command. Yet despite the luxury and protection, she felt trapped by invisible walls. From a young age, she had been taught to hate humans, but hatred never came naturally to her. Instead, curiosity grew quietly inside her mind. She wondered how a species so fragile could survive in such a violent galaxy. Why did humans keep fighting when the odds were impossible? These questions followed her into adulthood, unanswered and dangerous. Deep within the royal archives, hidden from public knowledge, were live feeds from distant conflict zones. These feeds were meant for strategic study, not emotional observation. One night, while the palace slept, the princess accessed a restricted channel. What she saw changed her forever. A human military vessel had entered a collapsing star system to evacuate civilians left behind after a failed imperial retreat. The mission made no sense from an alien perspective. The humans gained nothing. There was no reward, no territory, no power. Yet the human ship stayed, taking damage, shielding escape transports, and risking total destruction. The princess watched in silence as a human officer led the rescue. He moved with calm determination, issuing orders not with rage or pride, but with purpose. When one of his crew was injured, he stopped everything to save them. When alien civilians panicked, he reassured them, even though they feared him. In that moment, the princess felt something crack inside her beliefs. This was not the monster she had been taught to fear. This was courage without cruelty, strength without domination. Days passed, but the image of the human officer never left her thoughts. She began watching more human encounters, battles, rescues, losses, and victories. She learned that humans suffered greatly, yet they adapted. They lost worlds, yet rebuilt. They faced extinction again and again, yet still reached for the stars. Unlike many galactic species, humans did not rely on natural superiority. They relied on will. That frightened her more than any weapon. What the princess did not know was that every action in the empire created ripples. Surveillance systems monitored data usage, and patterns never lied. An intelligence officer noticed repeated access to restricted feeds. At first, it was dismissed as an error. Then the truth emerged. The queen's daughter was studying humans obsessively. The information reached the queen during a council meeting. Her reaction was immediate and terrifying. The temperature in the chamber dropped as her eyes narrowed. This was not just curiosity, this was weakness. And weakness in her empire was treason. The queen dismissed her council and ordered a full investigation. She wanted answers, and she wanted them quickly. Unaware of the danger closing in, the princess continued her secret observations. She felt drawn toward humanity in a way she could not explain. It was not rebellion she sought, nor betrayal. It was understanding. But in an empire built on fear, understanding the enemy was the greatest sin of all. As royal guards moved silently through the corridors toward the princess's chambers, the galaxy stood on the edge of something far greater than war. A forbidden secret had been discovered, and once the alien queen's fury was awakened, nothing human or alien would remain unchanged. The human officer was known among his crew as someone who never raised his voice, yet everyone listened to him. He did not command through fear or rank, but through trust and action. He had survived battles that should have killed him and missions that history would never record. To him, survival was not luck, it was responsibility. He believed every life mattered, whether human or alien, and that belief guided every decision he made. After the rescue mission, the human ship returned to a neutral space station where different species crossed paths under strict treaties. The officer walked through metal corridors carrying the weight of exhaustion, yet his eyes stayed alert. He knew the galaxy did not forgive mistakes, especially when humans were involved. Even so, he did not regret saving alien civilians, because for him, saving lives was never a mistake. Far away inside the alien royal citadel, the princess continued to watch him through intelligence feeds. She studied how he spoke to others, how his crew trusted him without question, how he shared food with lower-ranked soldiers and listened to their concerns. She noticed something rare in galactic leaders' empathy. This human did not see himself above others, and that unsettled everything she knew about power. Fate moved quietly when the alien empire sent observers to the same neutral station. Under diplomatic cover, the princess used this opportunity to leave the palace for the first time in years. Disguised and protected by a small escort, she stepped into a world where humans and aliens stood side by side. Her heart raced not with fear, but anticipation. The moment she saw the human officer in person, something changed. He looked smaller than alien warriors, yet stronger in ways armor could not measure. His body showed scars not hidden, but accepted as part of his journey. When their eyes met, neither spoke, but both felt the tension of history standing between them. Their first conversation was simple. He asked if she was safe. She asked why he helped aliens who hated humans. He answered that hate was easy, but saving lives was harder and worth it. The princess had no reply because no one had ever spoken to her with such honesty, without fear or desire for power. They met again and again, always briefly, always watched, yet every meeting chipped away at ancient lies. The human spoke of Earth, of lost cities, and rebuilding, of standing back up after falling. He did not paint humanity as heroes, only survivors who refused to disappear. The princess listened, realizing that humans did not conquer the stars because they were strongest, but because they endured. Meanwhile, shadows grew longer. The alien intelligence network tracked unusual movements and unapproved interactions. The queen was informed that a human officer had gained the attention of her daughter. Rage simmered beneath her calm exterior. Humans were not just enemies, they were chaos, and chaos had no place in her empire. The human officer sensed danger before it arrived. He noticed increased patrols, unusual scans, and silent threats. He warned the princess that their meetings could start a war. She answered that truth was already a war inside her. She had seen what humans truly were, and she could not unsee it. As they parted for the last time on the station, the human told her that no matter what happened, humanity would stand its ground. He did not promise victory, only resistance. The princess watched him walk away, knowing that the galaxy was approaching a breaking point. High above the stars, the alien queen prepared her response. Orders were issued. Fleets were moved, and silence fell across space. A single human had challenged an empire, not with weapons, but with who he was. And the princess knew the next choice would decide not just her fate, but the future of humanity itself. The bond between the alien princess and the human officer grew in silence and distance, yet it became stronger with every passing cycle. They did not touch and they did not speak openly, yet their connection lived in shared looks, brief messages, and moments stolen from a galaxy that demanded obedience. The princess found herself thinking like a human, questioning orders, questioning fear, questioning the old belief that power came from domination. She studied human history deeper, now learning about their losses, their wars, and their endless will to survive. Humanity had been pushed to the edge of extinction many times, yet they adapted and returned stronger, not because they were ruthless, but because they stood together. This idea stayed with her and slowly changed her heart. The human officer also changed. He had seen aliens as threats shaped by conflict and propaganda, but through the princess he saw another truth. He saw a being raised in power yet trapped by it. He saw intelligence, kindness, and doubt behind royal armor. Their conversations were careful but meaningful. They spoke about duty and choice, about survival and hope. The human did not speak of ruling the stars, he spoke of protecting those who could not protect themselves. The princess listened and felt something she had never felt before: trust. As time passed, the princess began to question the empire itself. She watched how fear ruled decisions and how obedience replaced thought. She realized the empire survived, not through unity, but through silence. Meanwhile, humanity survived through voices, through disagreement, through standing up even when standing meant pain. That difference mattered. Love grew quietly between them, not through grand words, but through shared understanding. It was love born from seeing the other clearly without illusion. But nothing stayed hidden forever. The empire watched everything. Patterns were detected, energy signatures traced, and forbidden data transfers revealed. The queen learned that her daughter was no longer curious. She was emotionally connected to a human. The truth struck harder than betrayal. It was shame in the queen's eyes. Love with a human meant weakness, and weakness threatened the foundation of her rule. Orders were given quietly, no public declaration, no warning. Just action. The human officer was marked for capture. Imperial forces moved through space with precision. The princess felt the shift before anyone told her. She sensed danger like a storm forming beyond sight. She tried to warn the human, but communications were jammed. The empire had already decided. The human ship was intercepted near the edge of neutral space. Surrounded by alien war vessels, the officer ordered his crew to stand down. He refused to sacrifice lives for his own freedom. He surrendered knowing what awaited him. Humanity would not forget him, but the empire intended to erase him. When the princess received the news, her world collapsed. She had believed truth could protect them. She had believed understanding could change fate, but the empire answered only to fear. She confronted her mother for the first time, standing before the throne without lowering her gaze. She spoke of humanity, of courage, and of honor. She spoke of love. The queen listened in cold silence, then declared that the human would be executed as a warning to the galaxy. The princess was confined, stripped of her status, and watched at all times, yet, even in chains, her resolve hardened. She understood now that love was not her weakness, it was her strength. Humanity had taught her that to care was to fight, to hope was to resist. Across the stars, news spread among human systems. A respected officer had been taken by the alien empire. Reactions were swift, not with panic, but with unity. Fleets did not mobilize yet, but plans were made. Humanity did not beg, they prepared. As the execution day approached, the galaxy held its breath. The queen believed she was ending a threat. The princess believed she was witnessing the birth of something greater. Love had crossed the stars and sparked defiance in two worlds. The next moment would decide whether fear ruled forever, or whether humanity would rise and be seen not as prey, but as equals. Execution Chamber was built to inspire fear. Its walls were alive with ancient symbols of conquest and obedience. Every ruler before the queen had stood here to remind the galaxy that defiance ended in silence. Guards lined the chamber, unmoving. Their armor reflected the cold light of the empire and the weight of absolute authority. In the center stood the human officer, restrained but unbroken. His posture was calm, his eyes steady. He knew death stood close, yet fear did not control him. The alien queen entered without ceremony. Her presence crushed the air itself. Every being in the chamber lowered their heads except the human. He looked at her, not with hate, but with understanding, and that unsettled her more than anger ever could. To her, humans were chaos, unpredictable and dangerous. Yet this one stood quietly, refusing to kneel, refusing to beg. His calm felt like an insult. She spoke, and her voice echoed through the chamber, declaring the crimes of the human and the shame brought upon her bloodline. She spoke of betrayal and weakness. She spoke of order and purity. Her words were sharp, designed to cut away doubt from those listening. The human listened without interruption. When she finished, he spoke only once, saying that he would not apologize for saving lives, That simple statement rippled through the chamber like a shockwave. The queen turned her fury inward. She ordered the princess brought before her guards, dragged the princess into the chamber, chains glowing. With suppression energy, the daughter of the empire looked smaller without her royal armor, yet her eyes burned brighter than ever. She did not look at the human first. She looked at her mother. She spoke calmly but with strength. She said the empire was afraid of humanity because humans reminded them what they had lost: choice, compassion, and courage. She said fear built walls, but truth broke them. She said love was not weakness, and humanity proved that every day. The chamber fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the queen like this, and Liv, the queen, felt rage beyond reason. Her own daughter dared to challenge her rule in front of the empire. She declared the princess unfit for succession and stripped her of all titles. She declared the human execution would proceed immediately. She believed ending his life would end the influence humanity had gained. But beyond the chamber, the galaxy was already moving. Humanity had learned of the capture and the planned execution. Human leaders did not issue threats. They issued statements of unity. Fleets moved into defensive positions, not to attack but to stand ready. Humanity would not kneel, and they would not abandon one of their own. Inside the chamber, alarms began to sound, not from an attack but from incoming transmissions. Across dozens of systems, humans broadcast a single message. They acknowledged the execution. They warned that killing the officer would not bring fear but consequence. They reminded the galaxy that humanity endured and responded not with rage but resolve. The queen hesitated for the first time. Her empire was strong but not unchallenged. Humanity was not begging. They were standing together. Calm, prepared, united. That was not weakness. That was something else. The human officer lifted his head and spoke again, saying that no matter what happened, humanity would remember this day, either as proof of alien cruelty or as the moment the galaxy chose a better path. The princess watched, knowing this moment would define history. The queen raised her hand, ready to give the final order, but her certainty was gone. The galaxy waited, humanity waited, and in that silence the alien queen's fury began to crack under the weight of something she could not control. The unbreakable spirit of humanity. Across human-controlled space, the news spread without panic, without chaos, and without fear. Humanity had learned long ago that survival depended on unity, not emotion. Fleets did not rush forward in anger, but they did move into position. Every ship, every station, every colony understood the message. One of theirs had been taken, and humanity would respond not with screams, but with presence. The human officer remained imprisoned, yet his calm echoed across the stars. His actions had reminded humanity who they were: not conquerors, not destroyers, but survivors who protected their own. Military leaders spoke with civilian councils. Scientists stood beside soldiers. Engineers prepared defenses while diplomats prepared words. Humanity showed the galaxy something rare: coordination without coercion, power without cruelty. They did not threaten the alien empire. They did not beg for mercy. They simply stated that the execution of one human would not end anything. It would begin something. Humanity did not kneel and had never survived by doing so. Inside the alien empire, confusion began to grow. Human fleets held their ground without advancing. Their formations were defensive, yet unbreakable. This was not an invasion. It was a statement. The alien generals expected fear or aggression. Instead, they faced discipline and patience. The empire had built its strength on intimidation, but intimidation failed when the enemy refused to be afraid. The alien queen watched the displays from her throne room. Her empire had crushed civilizations that dared far less, yet humanity stood quietly, unyielding, refusing to play the role of prey. This unsettled her advisors and angered her commanders. The queen felt rage, but also something unfamiliar: uncertainty. Humans were not acting as expected. They were not divided. They were not panicking. They were waiting. The princess remained confined, yet news reached her through whispers and guards, who no longer met her eyes with certainty. She felt hope rise within. Her humanity had not abandoned the human officer. they had not abandoned her either. In their silence, there was loyalty stronger than fear, stronger than death. That loyalty gave her strength, even in chains. The human officer was moved to a holding chamber, isolated yet monitored. He sensed the shift in the Empire. The guards were tense, their confidence cracked. He did not smile. He did not taunt. He simply waited, trusting his people. Humanity had endured worse than this. Humanity always endured. Alien diplomats attempted to demand submission. Humanity replied with unity. They spoke with one voice across systems, stating that killing the officer would not secure peace. It would erase any future possibility of it. Humanity did not seek war, but they would not accept injustice. Silence followed. No empire had ever been spoken to this way and survived. The Queen realized something dangerous. The Empire ruled through fear, but humanity ruled through belief. Humans believed in each other. That belief could not be destroyed with fleets or executions. It spread and inspired even those raised to hate them. Some alien officers began to question orders. Some wondered what kind of species stood together without command. As hours passed, the execution order remained unsigned. The Queen delayed, telling herself it was strategy, yet deep inside she felt the truth. Humanity was not weak. They were something far more dangerous. A species that refused to surrender, even when powerless. A species that stood together, even when divided by stars. The galaxy watched as the Empire hesitated. Humanity had forced a pause, not with weapons, but with will. The princess understood now that this was the true power of humanity. They did not kneel. They did not beg. They did not disappear. They stood, and in standing they changed everything. The princess stood alone in the silent chamber, surrounded by towering walls that once symbolized safety and pride. Now they felt like a cage built from fear. And tradition guards watched her closely, yet none spoke. They had seen the human fleets holding position. They had felt the hesitation ripple through the Empire. And they sensed something was changing inside the Queen herself. The princess had spent her life obeying, but now obedience felt heavier than chains. She thought of the human officer, his calm strength, and his belief that standing together mattered more than survival alone. Humanity had shown her that fear was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a choice. When the Queen summoned her again, the air felt different. Not colder, not warmer, just uncertain. The throne room was filled with advisors, generals, and silent watchers. The Queen looked as powerful as ever, yet the princess saw cracks hidden behind her eyes. For the first time, the ruler of countless systems did not look invincible. The princess walked forward without lowering her head. She did not ask permission to speak. She simply spoke. She told the Queen that the Empire had ruled for centuries through fear, and that fear had kept them strong, but alone. She said humanity had survived through loss and failure because they stood together even when divided. She said humans were not perfect and not peaceful by nature, but they chose to protect each other, and that choice made them dangerous and worthy of respect. She said killing one human would not restore honor. It would only prove fear ruled the Empire. The chamber stirred. Advisors shifted. Generals whispered. No one interrupted. The Queen listened as her daughter continued, saying love was not weakness, and understanding the enemy did not mean surrender. She said humanity had already changed the galaxy, not through conquest, but through presence. She said the Empire could either stand frozen in old fear, or step forward into a future where strength meant more than domination. The Queen rose from her throne slowly. The movement alone silenced the room. She spoke of tradition and survival, of how mercy had destroyed empires before she spoke of control and order. Yet even as she spoke, her certainty faded. The princess answered without hesitation, saying control without trust was decay, and order without purpose was hollow. She said the Empire feared humanity because humans reflected what the Empire once was before fear replaced hope. Silence followed, heavy and endless. The Queen looked around the chamber and saw doubt where obedience once lived. She realized the human execution would not end resistance, it would ignite something greater. She saw that humanity had already won a battle without firing a single shot. Far away, the human officer waited, unaware of the confrontation, but certain of its outcome, not because he believed in mercy, but because he believed in people. Humanity had endured extinction, wars, and isolation, and still stood. Humanity would stand now. The Queen finally spoke a single order. The execution was suspended. Gasps filled the chamber. The decision shocked the Empire and echoed across the stars. The princess felt her breath return. Hope spread quietly like dawn after endless night. The Queen did not admit defeat. She did not offer peace, yet in that moment, she acknowledged a truth she could no longer deny. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not chaos. Humanity was a force shaped by unity and will. The princess understood this was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity had shown that even empires built on fear could be shaken by those who refused to kneel. The moment the execution was suspended, the galaxy seemed to release a breath it had been holding for generations. Across human space, the fleets remained steady. Not celebrating, not retreating, simply holding position. Humanity had not stood to win glory. They had stood because they could not abandon one of their own. That message traveled faster than any signal touching worlds that had long feared both the alien empire and humanity itself. For the first time, many species saw humans not as invaders, but as something far rarer, a people who refused to break. Inside the alien capital, confusion slowly gave way to reflection. The Queen returned to her private chambers alone for the first time in centuries, without advisors, without generals. She faced the truth she had avoided. The empire was powerful yet brittle, built on fear that silenced growth. Humanity had shown another path: strength through unity, resilience through choice. She did not surrender her throne or her pride, but she recognized that killing the human would not restore control. It would only confirm the empire's weakness. The princess was released from confinement, though her title was not restored. She walked the halls freely again, feeling the weight of change. In every glance, guards no longer looked at her with certainty, but with curiosity, some even with respect. She understood that true change never arrived loudly. It moved quietly, through doubt, through thought, through courage. The human officer was transferred from his cell to a guarded diplomatic chamber. When he learned the execution had been halted, he felt relief but not surprise. Humanity had stood as he believed they would. He did not see himself as a hero, only as someone who acted as humans always had, protecting life, standing together, and refusing to disappear. Diplomatic channels opened slowly, carefully. Human representatives spoke without arrogance, without threat. They did not demand apology. They did not demand surrender. They offered dialogue. They offered coexistence based on respect rather than fear. That alone shook the galaxy more than war ever could. Queen watched these discussions unfold, knowing the empire could still crush humanity if it chose. Yet she also knew victory would be temporary. Humanity would return stronger, united, and unbroken. She chose a different path, not out of mercy, but strategy and survival. A ceasefire was declared, limited but real. The galaxy reacted in disbelief for the first time. In recorded history, the alien empire acknowledged humanity as an equal force. The announcement sent shockwaves through every system. Some celebrated, others feared change, but none could deny the truth. Humanity had earned its place not through conquest, but through resolve. The princess met the human officer one final time. Under watchful eyes, they did not embrace. They did not speak of love, only of hope. She thanked him for showing her another way. He thanked her for having the courage to choose. Yet their bond had reshaped empires without violence. As human fleets slowly withdrew, the galaxy settled into a new balance. Humanity returned home not as conquerors, but as a warning and a promise. A warning that unity could not be crushed. A promise that survival did not require domination. The alien queen stood upon her throne, once more ruling an empire forever changed. She had not lost power, but she had lost certainty, and in its place something new began to grow. Humanity continued forward, as it always had, adaptive, resilient, unyielding. The stars no longer looked down on them as prey or invaders, but as equals. And across the galaxy, one truth became clear. Humanity did not rise because it was the strongest. Humanity rose because it refused to kneel.